Yay, you can see me. Okay. Can you share the link? So yes, you can see me and hear me. Amazing. Thank you. Okay, I'm trying to share that. Delete. Yes, delete. 5 is up. Yay! Okay. People. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. Oh, this is so frustrating, but you know, typical for an Emma Live that technology just doesn't want to work. Hey, Holly! Yay! Okay. Whoo! Big breath. How's everybody doing today? Yes, I'm so excited. That was like 3 links that wouldn't work. Don't tell me why. They were all created exactly the same way, all posted exactly the same way, but this is the world we're living in. So I'm so glad that I can do this today to hopefully help some people get out of that funk that we're in and allow us to understand that we're much more powerful than we realize, and that with the tools that you have been using for years within this practice can help you get through this and strengthen you and keep you grounded through these incredibly uncertain times. So I just want to take a second to like ground myself. I'm going to light some incense. As always, I use charcoal, and today I have my Thor incense that I'm going to be using. So give me a second here. I gotta get rid of all these things as I was scrambling. So how are people feeling today? How are you, getting through day-to-day life? And also let me know where you're watching from, because I have had a ton new followers since I've been posting my real honest posts about what is going on in the world. So let me know where you're watching from. Let me know how you're feeling. Hey, Eileen, thanks for joining. Eileen, I know it's hard, me and my saying things and remembering things. Somebody was here the other day, and this person I have known for years. And my son came in the door and I could not remember what their name was to introduce them to my son. So I was just like, I think everybody is used to it by now. Oakville. Hey, Loretta. Hey, watching from Wallenstein. Oh, Holly, I was looking at houses north of Wallenstein today. Mulmer, Ontario. Amazing. Don't call you late for dinner. I love it. Kitchener, Milton. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, Sarah. We're feeling like we're watching society burn down. It's really unsettling, but I will tell you, Red Deer, Alberta, thanks for joining. We've got Baden. Thanks for joining, Sarah. So I have this incense that I absolutely love. This is the one that I use when I am feeling ungrounded, when I am feeling like I need more strength to get through the day. This is the Thor blend that I created. And as you'll see, well, probably not because I'm not on a black background, but it creates a lot of smoke because I use wet and dry ingredients. So it smolders really good. So this is one of my favorites. This is very easy to make. If you've never made your own hand blended incense today, I highly recommend just playing. In this one, I have pine needles, I have dragon's blood, I have juniper berries. What else did I put in this one? Oak oil, peppermint essential oil, pine needles, juniper berries, and dragon's blood. So I believe that the more that we can actually put our hands into our practice, the more it's almost like a layering technique, right? You know, when we talk about essential oils, if you're an essential oils person, we layer the oils, the scents to kind of create what we want. It's the same with incense. So as you can see, my little cauldron is burning away. Maybe if yeah, there we go. And I really didn't put a lot on. So I use this blend, like I said, to give me strength. This is my Thor blend from the shop. But this is when I want to call on courage, when I'm trying to make decisions, when I need some clarity. Pine needles, if we think about pine needles, they are point, right? They get straight to the point. So it's about creating that clarity. So I use this one a lot. So if you need some smoke, take some smoke, ground yourself, tune into that energy. Okay. So let's just put this on my altar. So why are we all here today? We're all here because, like Sarah said, it feels like the world is coming undone and it's very hard to be grounded in this time. The other reason that we're here, and I'm sure there's some new followers, hey, Willow Beach, Ontario, that aren't familiar with the way that I work and what I do. I'm Emma Smallbone. I'm a seer and a healer and a wise woman. I work with the nature elements, with spirit and the collective to bring through messages, to give people the confidence to live in these tumultuous times, to work with their magic, because I truly believe that we all have access to this thing that is spoken of in reverence. And we don't necessarily realize how simple it is to connect to those things. We also don't realize that it is a very powerful form of meditation. It is a very powerful form of like self-improvement, all of these things. But one of the reasons that I've gotten incredibly ranty recently is I'm a little disillusioned by my own community. So if you're in my community, you are probably drawn here because of me speaking out about these things that I started to see during COVID, that people were, saying things like, let's stay high vibe, let's meditate, let's align our chakras, and that's all great. Trust me. It's where I started. I was trained in mediumship in the spiritualist church. You always go up to connect with something greater than yourself. We talked about chakras and we talked about using crystals to align ourselves, even though the spiritualist church doesn't. They're not a huge believer in tools or ritual. And I can tell you that without a doubt, because that was pretty much why I was kicked out at one point. But they let me back. But all of these things that are being taught, to me recently, feel like tools to actually put our heads in the sand, to ignore what is actually going on in the world. And my frustration is that you cannot white light war and instability in our society and instability in our politics you can't white light that away. You have to be incredibly conscious. You have to be here on this earth plane, connecting to the people that are around you instead of just trying to keep things high vibe. We all know about toxic positivity, and we've heard a lot about that in the last couple of years. But right now, we're seeing it en masse. Oh, I gotta close my. My incense turned off my fire alarm. It will stop beeping in a second. I always forget to close my door. Down here, it's not as sensitive as it is upstairs because we've set that. So I apologize. It will go off in a second. I hope. I didn't create that much smoke. Kitchener, hey, welcome, Alexis from Kitchener. Just talk amongst yourselves while that goes away. I know I'm horrible. I burn way too much smoky things. And it's funny because it never used to go off. And now when I burn incense for some reason, it seems to go off a lot. I'm going to go and turn the fan on and hopefully that will help. Okay, I'm back. You know you're a witch when you can stop the fire alarm from going off. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Jennifer. Oh, thanks. You know what? My son banished me from buying new mugs. I had to sneak this one into the house. He was not happy about it. So let's get back to what we were talking about before the alarm went off. So we're in this chaotic time. And why I got so upset this past weekend was my husband actually said to me, I think you need to go back on Instagram because Twitter is stressing you out. I have been sitting on Twitter watching all of this news roll in. And if you don't realize, there is a lot of news being reported on Twitter directly from reporters on the ground. So in Kyiv, in anything to do with the trucker thing that happened here, the occupation here in Canada, there was minute by minute reporting. It was fascinating and I got obsessed with it. But my husband was like, I think you're consuming too much news and you need to go back onto Instagram to watch the fluff or to watch the, and that was my issue with Instagram in the first place. All of these platforms that have been created in the past, Facebook really only got hopping in 2010. So it's really only been around for 12 years. So in the past 12 years, these platforms have created a false world, a false community, sense of community. We're connecting more with people all over the world, which is amazing. I would never take back my relationship with Vix Maxwell. I love that I can have that communication with somebody. Well, she was in England and now she's moved to Australia, but having that communication with somebody that I resonate with on such a deep level. And we've been back and forth this week about what we see in this world. So I do appreciate those platforms. But when you dig into it, and when you learn more about these platforms and how many people buy followers, how many people are, showing something really pretty on the surface, but actually in the background, not much is happening, I started to get suspicious when I started looking at, what I was posting and what was getting likes and what was getting viewed and what wasn't getting viewed. And if I boosted a post, what would happen to it? I started seeing how bad this false economy had become, how bad the bullshit had become, that there were so many people that were like, my business is thriving and everything is great. But then when you actually look, I said to my husband, oh, doom scrolling. Oh my God. Don't even get me started on doom scrolling. That is like, I've had to like take a step back from social media because it was too much. But the falsehood of all of these platforms. And when I went back onto Instagram on the weekend just to have a peek at what was going on, my algorithm was completely different. It was like off the charts, just businesses and people I hadn't seen forever. So me being off for probably 2-3 weeks had already shifted my algorithm so much I wasn't seeing anybody. So then I started seeking out some of the spiritual practitioners that I had followed, and nobody was talking about the convoy that we had here in Canada, or if they were talking about the convoy, there was this really kind of like, I support it, but like in this quiet whisper, like they were reposting things or they were talking about, medical freedom, here's the thing. In Canada, we have choice. You can choose to either get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. But with those two things come consequences or come choices that have to be made afterwards. So if you're not, just know that you may not be able to go, well, soon you'll be able to go to a restaurant, but there was no freedom taken away. And actually, these truckers were complaining that they couldn't go back across the border, but the US wouldn't let you in if you were vaccinated either. So the whole entire thing was incredibly, in my eyes, unfortunate because I felt like there was so much false information being given and being put out into social media that people were convinced that this convoy was something that it wasn't. And now, weeks later, we're actually seeing that this was a massive distraction. And these distractions were going on all over the world. And as a seer, I have been seeing these things come for years. If you have been following me, I was actually thinking about this the other day. When I had my office in Cambridge, the reason I had that office in Cambridge was because Spirit told me that gas was going to get so expensive that people wouldn't be able to afford to drive to my house. And that I had to have an office that was in walking distance from my house, and people had to be able to walk to it. So that is why I chose Hespeler, because I could literally walk to my office. I mean, it would take me probably an hour, but I could do it and people could walk to me. That was 4 years ago, right? I totally agree with you, Alexis. When your primary news source is Facebook, things get pretty dodgy. Yes, and it is incredibly hard to watch. I am a huge believer in getting your information from varied sources. I never just go to one source and trust that source. I then look around and find alternative sources too. Hang on, my dog's pacing. I just got a letter. So here's the thing about this. As spiritual people, I had so many people attack me for my beliefs on this whole entire piece, and had a lot of people tell me that how dare I be spiritual if I wasn't siding with the truckers. Oh, I sympathize with the truckers for the reason that they were convinced that this was about mandates and not about something else. That the information that was provided to them that made sense to them was oh, my glasses are wrong, was totally disinformation. And we can see that now clear as clear can be. And it's just so frustrating to me that so many people have dove headlong into that conspiracy theory, into all of those things. And trust me, there are some conspiracy theories I totally believe in. I am not anti-conspiracy theory. I think there are lots of things in this world that are unexplained, make absolutely no sense. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Samantha. It is so hard. This is pulling families apart. This is pulling people apart. But we have to remember to stand in our truth. And if you're somebody in the spiritual community, if you're somebody that has been following this path for a while, you have done this since the day that you decided to go, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pick up some crystals. I'm going to pick up a deck. We have always been on the alternative side. We have always had to stand up. And, not everybody has conversations with their family about what they do in their home or what they practice. And that is your choice. And you can still choose to do that when it comes to these conversations. And I would suggest, the same way that I talk about spirituality, I am now at a place in my life that I do not feel judged if I stand, it is still judgment, but if I stand up and say I'm a seer and somebody questions it, I just go, you are more than welcome to question that. You are more than welcome to doubt what my beliefs are. But that will never affect the way that I feel about my beliefs. That is the way that we need to have these conversations and not get defensive. It's just the same way as if somebody says to you, how dare you believe in angel cards? Or that's just a joke. We have to look at these conversations in the same light. Whether you believe in being vaccinated or you don't believe in being vaccinated, I could honestly care less. I have always been this person that we should have freedom of choice. I have tons of friends that aren't vaccinated. I will love you until the day that you are no longer within my circle. But I still do question where you're getting your information from. And that's my problem, not yours. Right? That's my issue, not yours. And it should not create one of these. If you love somebody, even if they're vaccinated or not vaccinated or what your opinion is, if you love them, you should just love them, because love is about being unconditional. Being spiritual is about not judging. So do I, in the quiet of my own home, go, oh my God, what is going through these people's minds? Hell yes. But I would never project that onto somebody else. And that is something that we really have to consider in this community. And we really have to consider how people absorb information, how they process it. Some of these people might actually still be processing the information they learned 2 years ago. I have a really hard time processing information. When the whole vaccine thing came up, it actually took me a really long time to say, yes, I'm going to do this. It is like anything else. It takes people time sometimes to come around, or they may never come to the similar conversation that you're having. They may never. That is not our job. So first of all, I just want to say we have to have more grace. We have to have more understanding for people that maybe not have gotten the same information that we have received during this time. Maybe they were really horrible at researching when they were kids. Maybe they have one source of information. Hey, Jen, thanks for joining. Maybe they only have one source of information, and that's their mom. And they've always trusted their mom to be that source of information, and they've never looked outside of it. We cannot judge people for how they get information, but hopefully we can just have an open space for them to fall in. Maybe one day they'll get that information, but we can't worry about that. So one of the things that I have done during all of this to ground myself is to bring myself back to just my family, my son, my husband, and my mother. That is really all not even control, but that is what I can take care of. That is what my mental capacity is capable of doing. And we have to make these choices. I know Sarah had said earlier that she feels like the world is literally coming undone. And it really does feel like it. Pretty much we'll see how it plays out in the next couple of days, but this invasion into the Ukraine could last for years and years, because once somebody invades, it takes a very long time for them to come out. And that is why nobody else is choosing they're sending their military as a peacekeeping, as a, that sort of thing, but nobody else has sent armed troops in yet, because it is very hard to take them out again. And we saw that with Afghanistan. Look what happened in Afghanistan when everybody left. It just went right back to where it was. And we know that these political leaders are thinking about that. Look what happened with the Taliban when everybody left Afghanistan. So we want to be able to support the Ukraine and do everything we possibly can, but also look at the bigger picture and how that affects us. So one of the things that I really want to talk about is how to be a witch in this world and keep your family in a place that feels secure, uncomfortable, and like the world isn't coming apart. Like I said, I've been seeing these things for years. For probably over 5 years, I have seen military coming up my driveway. Now, the way that this works for seers or intuitives or healers that get these psychic hits, it doesn't mean that when I see people coming up my driveway, that they're literally going to be coming up my driveway. It could also mean invasion, right? When we see invasion from the south, which is where they came from, that could be the US, that could be the attacks from the south in the Ukraine. So as a seer, we have to interpret these. And that is why I don't immediately, come out and say, hey guys, we're going to be invaded. Because everything changes all the time. And you have to realize that there are multiple timelines, and this gets a little bit wooey, but understand the whole dimensions, timelines piece is kind of this way of saying there's several possibilities, there's several outcomes. So when we do a card reading for somebody or we do an intuitive reading for somebody, there are, in that moment at this time, if I pulled cards right now, it would be for this specific moment. Now, tomorrow, that may all shift because the Ukraine may be able to take back some of that area, or Russia invades even harder and has some success in areas. That may shift everything. But right now, we are sitting in a time of war. And probably about 6 years ago, I heard an astrologer say that I can't remember, I think it was when Trump was trying to get elected, they did an astrological kind of snapshot of the stars. And they said the stars that we're sitting under right now are the same stars that were above during World War II. So we are in the energy of war. So what does this mean for the average person? It means war in families. It means war in relationships. It means war with ourselves. Who here is at battle with yourself as to what to do with your friends, with your family, with your career, with your house, it's a battle. This is not just about war as in we're going to be bombed or, the US is going to invade. It's not necessarily that energy. It's just everybody wants to fight right now because of this energy that we're sitting in. So I noticed it the other today, and I'll give you this as a real life experience. So I am doing a lot of research into my ADHD because it has become wildly apparent that when I am under stress, my ADHD peaks so high, it is ridiculous. Like literally, I cannot remember or focus or keep a train of thought at all. So I've been doing tons of research into this. And I've been sharing some of that information with my husband. I've been sharing some of that information with my child, just putting it out there and saying, these are the things right now that I have a really hard time dealing with. So the other day, I was just making a really quick meal before my son went to swimming, and it was chicken nuggets and fries. Ooh, it was so exciting. That was the good chicken nuggets, so don't worry. Everybody's got to have that meal every once in a while. So that's what I was making. And I had turned on the oven, and I thought I had put everything in the oven, and I went to lay down on the couch and set the timer. Well, my husband went to go outside to clear some snow because we have had so much snow in the last couple of weeks. And before he left, he said, "Oh, the timer went." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've put them in." And like he stared at those chicken nuggets on the stove, but didn't say a thing. And then he came back in 5 minutes later and he's like, "Are you going to put those in the oven?" And then like got really upset that I hadn't put the chicken nuggets in the oven. Like World War III upset. Like full reign of like, "You're wasting propane and da 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 da." And because I am kind of like going through all this processing of my emotions and stuff, I just went, "Oh," I'm like, did we just fight like hardcore over chicken nuggets and that I hadn't put them in the oven for 2 minutes? And in that moment, I realized that this had nothing to do with the chicken nuggets. It had nothing which was going on with our life. It was this perfect storm of energy that made us fight about chicken nuggets. So if you feel like you're fighting over the simplest things right now, understand that this has a lot to do with the energy that we're sitting in. Something happened with Pluto this week, and I think it was supposed to happen. Was it yesterday? What day is today's Friday? So Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday is when something transitioned with Pluto. And I know that had a big effect. And essentially that's when all of this came to a head. So knowing that we are here, this is what we're dealing with. So we have to shift the way we think about it. One of the things that really has frustrated me since the beginning of this pandemic is everybody talking about going back to normal, that we need to get back to normal. And I have been saying for the entire time, there is no normal anymore. What once was is no longer. We cannot go back to the normal way of living. This pandemic is going to go on for much longer, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've got at least, like, what are we in, 2022? We've at least got 3 more years of this. At least. And with this war happening, it may go on for longer because we are going to be distracted from what is important, and we will be focused on things that are not the environment and are not about a pandemic. And we will get distracted and we will have waves again. It is what it is. So, as human beings living on this planet, we just have to not resign ourselves. That's not the right word. We need to get on board with the idea that we will be living in chaos. We have done this many times before. Every single ancestor that came before us has gone through a time like this, right? I was thinking the other day about wartime and why do I feel so prepared for it? And not war here. Potentially, If things do not go well, that would not surprise me. But war in general, the energy of war and the chaos it creates, is because I grew up listening to my elders talk about World War II, because my grandmother was a nurse in World War II. My grandfather was he was a chef, but also like a comms person in World War II. And I heard those stories. I heard about rationing. I heard about, finding unexploded shells in, it's like it's already within my nervous system. So when I started 5 years ago hearing all of this and the pressure that spirit was putting on me to do things like get an office and to do things like create a community offline, I really sat with that energy and started doing things like my grandparents had told me about. So, stockpiling water, I was stockpiling canned food, I was stockpiling dry goods. All of this leading to this moment where our supply chain is going to be drastically weakened. And as much as everybody thinks this is rumors, I have heard from very good sources that the prediction is that it is going to get way worse, because oil is going to go through the roof with Russia not supplying the US anymore. They are not the biggest supplier to the US, and the US has a decent supply, but it's a third of their oil supply. So they immediately have a third of their oil supply gone. And we can already hear about the rumblings out west that, because Kenny's promoting his oil like it's the best. So that's going to be great for Alberta. But for the rest of us, we're going to be affected. Oh, that's so cool, Allison. See, I'm fascinated by wartime. I don't know if it's just my ancestry or my roots or the preparation for it. I have no idea. But I love the idea of being able to sustain myself. So one of the things that I want to recommend to everybody here, and this isn't because I believe that war is imminent, but if you had a plan, if you had, like myself, if the power goes out here and if the internet goes down and all of those things, we have wireless radios, we have a stockpile of food, we have things to survive. And for me, that takes a lot of stress out of my system. Being prepared for things like the power going down. Because I will tell you, the longer that the war in Russia goes on, the longer there is instability in our country and in the US, they will do things like rolling blackouts, like rolling internet outages. Look to any other country right now that is going through something similar to what we're going through. We're at the very beginning of this. With the movement of the convoy, we are seeing the instability that a few people can cause. So if you can imagine that people come together and cause more instability, then we will have to find other ways to control that. And if you guys follow Anonymous, I love hacktivists, to be honest. I think they're like the Robin Hoods of modern day. I love the fact that they can tear down websites and take control of certain media. It fascinates me because I wish I could do that. I wish I could contribute in that way, but I don't have those abilities. So we look to other people like, excuse me. Anonymous today has taken down the military website in Russia, and they've also taken down the TV station that was promoting all sorts of propaganda. People are fighting back. People are fighting back in their own ways. People are standing up for what they believe in. And people are also, instead of fighting amongst ourselves, because that is the whole point of these movements. The whole point of these movements is to get us doing this. Like, you can see it in the spiritual industry. Like, I'm pissed that there are people that are just blatantly ignoring the fact that all of this is happening. And they're like, send yourself some white light and celebrate the 222 portal and manifest the world for yourself. That's so toxic. I can't even fathom saying to somebody we should be focusing on manifesting more money for ourselves right now. That's fantastic. Like, if you can be so oblivious to what's going on in the world and focus on yourself and bring yourself a crap ton of money, I would hope to hell that you were going to turn that money into something to give to Ukraine. Like, I donated to a humanitarian project yesterday because it made me feel good, even though I don't have a ton of extra money, but I'm doing much better than the people in the Ukraine. So that is one way that we can help. One of the other things that we have to realize as witches is that we can use our meditations, we can use our thoughts, we can use our energy to push energy into the Ukraine. So I talked yesterday about creating this. So I'm just going to pull up. So I want to talk about how we can make change in our own lives for a bit, instead of me just being ranty about people not seeing what is right in front of them, which is one of my biggest frustrations on this planet, is that people can't see what is going on right in front of them, especially as a seer. So this is a sigil that I created a couple of weeks ago when people were being attacked in the convoys and people were being attacked at Parliament, all of those things going on. Sigil work is amazing. Yes, Loretta, it was so intense when I tuned into the energy and sent some, and I'll talk to that in a moment. But I created this sigil the morning that they were not going to send military in, but I knew some local police that were headed to Ottawa, and I wanted to create protection for them. So I created this sigil. Sigil work is incredibly powerful because we're putting our own energy into something and sending it out into the world. And I gave instructions on my website how to do that. But it can be as simple as taking a candle in a jar like this and drawing the sigil on the actual jar. And I just did this with a Sharpie. And then lighting that candle with the intention of sending that energy to the Ukraine. Because here's the thing, right now, I can't even imagine being a mother in the Ukraine. I was watching videos yesterday of husbands sending their children and their wives off, not knowing if they would ever see them again. That just kills my heart. Like, I just can't imagine people going through this in like incredibly civilized countries that are very much like us. People were walking around yesterday in the Ukraine just saying, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't think it was going to happen. So they're in shock. And if we can send them the energy of confidence and strength, this is what I request of you. So lighting a candle in meditation and imagining your strength, your energy, or even calling in gods. Yeah, I know. I think so many of us were crying yesterday, Sarah. It was absolutely heartbreaking. I can't even fathom. Yeah, I know. So here's the thing. We need to release that energy. It's absolutely, like, I'm not a person that pushes down my feelings ever, because I think crying is the best therapy on the planet. But what we can do for them instead of crying for them is sending them powerful energy. So sending sigils of protection, and you can actually imagine this sigil in your mind overlaying the Ukraine. So as you meditate, pushing that sigil out of your body, out of your mind, and onto the Ukraine, you can actually get a map of the Ukraine and draw the sigil on top of it. I also, one of the things that I do is I use my protection oil along with the sigil, and I will actually, I'm going to show you how I kind of created this, so then you can create one for yourself. What I did was the final sigil was here, but I cut it out and I put it on my altar, and I took my protection oil and I rubbed that oil into the sigil to activate it. And I asked that protection be sent, and I kept sending it to the people that I knew that were going to be a part of the push with the police. So a sigil creation, there's lots of ways to do it, and I'm actually thinking of teaching a class on it if anybody is interested, because I personally use this way. I use these symbols a lot to protect myself. And we can make our own symbols to protect ourselves. So when I was thinking about what was going on, I do my best work in the shower. I connect deeply in the shower because as you can imagine, the water is flowing. You're completely relaxed. You think about being in the shower, and while you're in the shower, you've actually kind of gone somewhere else because you automatically washed your body. You unconsciously shampooed your hair. And sometimes you're like, did I soap up? Because you're so somewhere else when you're in the shower. It always takes us to a different kind of level, right? So please teach class. I think I'm going to teach a class on sigils. It's one of my favorite, and literally you need a piece of paper and a pen. You can totally use my sigil. That's why I put it out there, so you can download that sigil, or you can recreate it. You can carve it into a candle. But for this sigil, I wanted to use, and if you can see, this is the original picture that I did. So in here, I have my key, right? And then I have the symbol, my protection symbol that I use on a lot of my products, which is the sun symbol. But it represents the sun, which is a powerful force, right? But it also has the elements in there. So earth, air, fire, and water. And then when I was in the shower thinking of this, they were like, it needs wings of protection. So this was the original one. I'm horrible at pointing on camera. This was the original one. And then I just kept simplifying, and kept simplifying until I have the sigil that you see on screen here. And the little dots are the power of 3. We have that cross for protection. We have the key, right? And for me, the key is me. I'm the power. I am the key. I am the one that creates the magic. I am the one that imbues the magic. I am the one that is the force. So we are the key to protecting ourselves, right? Now, you can create anything. It doesn't have to be like this. You can, like I've got on the bottom there, a hedgehog is a great symbol of protection. You could put hedgehogs all around your house. But we can use these things to amplify our magic. And if you're worried about people, making assumptions about your practice or even questioning what you do, sigils are a great way to hide magic, because nobody is going to know that you have drawn that sigil on the inside of the back of your shirt. So this is the other thing about sigils. You can put them on your altar. You can draw them on your child's back before they leave for school. You can put it on your door in soap. You can put it on your door with charcoal. You can paint it on your door. You can put it in your car. Sigils have limitless possibilities, and you can create sigils for absolutely anything. You want more love in your life? Create a sigil. If you want more money in your life, create a sigil. It is incredibly simple and powerful magic. and we can carve it into trees, we can carve it into metal, you can do absolutely anything with sigils. It is an incredibly powerful form of magic that has been used for millennia. You know, think about all the Celtic swirls, sigils. Think about hieroglyphics, sigils. I mean, you know, not sigils, but same powerful concept. We use these symbols and sigils to create power in our lives. And knowing that we have something, yes, on your coaster, because if we put the sigil underneath our drink, then we're consuming that power, right? How amazing is that? And if we use it in conjunction with something like protection oil, which I think I still have some in the shop, this stuff is, I honestly, the feedback that I've gotten from this line of oils is insane. Some of the comments have been absolutely phenomenal, but we can use this. So we're layering, right? You get a sigil. Exactly. Everybody gets a sigil. We can layer things. So we can create a sigil. We can amplify it with the oil. We can draw that sigil on our body with that oil. We can, oh my God, I love this one. I'm just going to do this. I use protection oil a lot on my third eye. So yesterday, I have this really interesting, I want to call it a gift. I don't really know what to call it. Spirit, when they want me to talk, when they want me to do something like this, they sit in my sinuses and it literally feels like a sinus infection. But the reason I know it's different is because I can breathe and I can, like, I'm not snotty. There's not the same pressure down here. It's right here and it feels like a burning and it feels like a pressure. So spirit is like literally inundating my third eye with the fact that they want me to speak out. So yesterday that was happening all day. So I knew I had to do a video. I knew I had to share this knowledge with people. And actually, I got a message yesterday from an astrologer friend of mine that said, you need to stop hiding your magic. We all know that's what you're doing. Hiding in your community. But I don't feel at this point I'm hiding. I'm just creating a new place for me. So if people want to find my magic, they just have to come to my community and on my terms. This is all about boundaries for me. I no longer want to be part of the community on Facebook and Instagram. I have zero interest in that whatsoever. So one of the other things that we can do to help is call in deities that will empower us to feel stronger on our daily life, in our daily lives. So, you've had the feeling. Okay. So one of the things that I will tell you, if you have been having that pressure in here, one of the things you can do to clarify whether that is what it is you can say, do your little meditation or however you connect, whether you sit with your altar or whatever it is that you do, ask spirit or the gods or whoever you work with or your guides, if this is a spirit communication, please relieve the pressure. If it goes away for even a second, if it feels all of a sudden lighter and there's no pressure after asking, it's spiritual. Trust your guts. If that still stays, then you might want to go and see a doctor about it, because I know I've had sinus infections that just put me out for days. But I know the difference now because I've done it enough. But yes, that can be the pressure in your third eye, is to share your wisdom and your knowledge. So allow yourself to do that, Innkeeper's Daughter. Now, I want to talk about calling on deities. So I'm going to go through some deities that can help us in these times. I'm very partial to Norse gods and goddesses. I think most of you already know that. It's my background. I also have Celtic background, so I know a lot about Celtic gods and goddesses, but also have previously worked with angels. I have previously worked with Hindu gods and goddesses. There is no right way or wrong way to do this. I also want you to understand that if you feel a calling to a specific god or goddess that isn't within your culture, my belief is they would not call you if they weren't looking to help you. So allow yourself to call out for a deity and don't force it. This is the one thing that I want to say to people. You can, like, I love decks like Vix's Angels Among Us because this allows us to create a connection with a deity. So, all you have to do is have a deity deck, which I have, like a Goddess and Sirens one. I have my Viking Oracle. There's also Kyle Gray has the Keepers of the Light. These are a great way to create that connection if you're unsure of what deity to call on. So literally every day with a deck like this, or one that you feel connected to that has deities in it, you can say, who do I need to call on today to help me through what I'm feeling and to give me the confidence to move forward in life? Okay, so we have Archangel Jeremiel. I don't know them all. So we have an angel card. This is perfect. And his is about reflections, dreams, and visions. So I know when I see the all-seeing eye, this is my dad. So if you don't know, I have an all-seeing eye on my arm for my dad because he was a Mason. So yes, this is about Archangel Jeremiel, but also whenever I see this, I see my dad. So my dad is saying, don't worry, I'm here. I will connect with you. So it's also not, yes, you can use the Divine Feminine Oracle like that. So you can ask every single day if you're uncertain, and what you will notice is certain gods, goddesses, and ascended masters or angels will show up for you. This is how I strengthened my connection with Odin and Freya. So one of the very first decks that I got that was an oracle deck was this one right here. I had always used tarot. I had never used oracle cards, but I was really curious about angels and deities because I had never worked with them before. It wasn't something, the Celtic deities I had worked with, but if you understand Celtic deities, they're more like people here on Earth. It's Mother Earth and Father Sky and Cernunnos and Bridget, and they were human beings on this earth. So what I was doing in the beginning was, it was exactly the same. Who am I supposed to work with today? Of course, Cernunnos, life force. And he's a Celtic god. And it was literally, I would pull one every single day. And for me, 90% of the time, oh, look at this. They're together in the deck. I love it. 90% of the time, it was Odin, who is the god that I follow the most, and Freya. So the thing that I love about Odin and Freya for me, it's my connection to ravens. It's my connection to the other world because my raven shows up quite regularly to help me connect with the other world. But they are also gods of war or goddesses of war and goddesses of love and witches. So to me, this connection for me just made so much sense. And then when I started looking at my ancestry, we actually have Norse connections. So it really, truly made sense for me. If you want something right now, because you don't have time to create that relationship, I totally get it. But I will say the relationships that are built over time will be very strong. And when you're asking the universe to guide you and it shows up, it feels so powerful. but I'm going to share with you some of the gods and goddesses that I would recommend to call on at this time to build your confidence, to ground you into where you are now, to give you the strength to move forward. Because I know on the days that I don't stand here, on the days that I don't stand in front of my altar with Odin, and I also have Ganesh on there, and we'll talk about him in a second. And we also have Artemis on there for wisdom. So the days that I don't connect with my altar, I feel disconnected. I feel like I can't focus and I don't have direction. I get incredibly overwhelmed. But when I come and stand with my altar and give an offering and light a candle and just ask questions or just be with Odin's energy, I feel confident. I feel strong. I feel like I can do anything because I have the All-Father with me throughout the day. So one of the things that you can do is build an altar for peace. You can build an altar for strength. It can be the same altar. Like for me, this is my deity's altar. I have my working altar that you guys have seen previously in the videos, but this is the main one that I venerate every single day, which is Odin. And Hecate's sometimes on there, but she's not on there right now because I don't feel like I want the crossroads thing answered yet. So let's go through some of the people you can call on. So we'll start with Lord Ganesh. So Ganesh is a Hindu god, and he is usually represented by an elephant. So here we go. And my son tells me the story of Ganesh, and it's pretty crazy. So I can't remember what happened, but I think that the baby was born a boy, but they wanted a girl and they cut its head off. And then the mother was really upset. So they replaced the head with an elephant head. And hello, Ganesh. You know, just like Norse traditions are crazy, you know, sons having sex with fathers and bearing a horse as a child. It's all, none of these traditions, like when you read them, it's all like, is this for real? But the strength in them, in the storytelling. I'm a huge believer in fables. I have taught my son fables to explain things for years. And we do that in the spiritual realm as well. It's like telling a story to give us power, right? So we have Ganesh, who removes obstacles. So if you're struggling with having a conversation with people, or you're having a hard time getting a job, or you want Russia to get out of the way of the Ukraine, call on Ganesh, Lord Ganesh. Okay, so Baba Yaga is a crazy witch that lives in a house with chicken legs, and she moves and she lives in a forest. She is, and here's the thing, some people refer to her as a goddess. She is not a goddess. She is just kind of like Celtic gods and goddesses. They were here, they were people, but then they got venerated to a higher level. So like an ascended master. So Baba Yaga is great if you want to call in the strength of your witchcraft. Call in the strength of your wisdom, because she's a wise woman. So if you want to connect with your inner wise woman, call on Baba Yaga. Okay, I love these cards. Vix's new cards. Archangel Michael. So see the sword on his chest. Michael is an amazing angel to call in for protection, but also for cutting cords. If you want something cut out of your life, so say, once again, we're having trouble with family, or we're having trouble connecting with the community around her or around us, or if we're having trouble, you know, protecting our energy, call on Archangel Michael. If you resonate with angels. So I'm going to show you a varied amount of deities here so you can find one that resonates with you. And this is everything to do with spirituality, is you have to find what works for you. I love Norse gods and runes and everything to do with that culture because it so truly resonates with who I am and my beliefs as a human being. So We're going to move on. We have the Hindu goddess Kali Ma, and she is somebody to invoke when you're feeling fearful. She is a fierce Hindu goddess of protection. She is a war goddess. And I don't know if you can see here, but she has all these skulls hanging on her. She eats men, which I will say, I just kind of love that concept. Now, we have some ascended masters. So ascended masters are people that lived here on this earth and then became venerated and ascended to a higher level. Not necessarily gods, not necessarily goddesses, not necessarily, oh, I'm going to show Joan of Arc in a second, Lee. But we can call on, and look at this, Joan of Arc, right? We can call on this energy. If you think about Joan of Arc and what her truth was, that she heard God's voice in her mind at 14 and led a army to like success as a 14-year-old, and then they killed her because she was a woman dressed in men's clothes. Like, what a martyr. Like, I love this energy of Joan of Arc. She is ferocious. She was one of the very first deities that came to me. I think I was probably, I want to say I was younger than 14. I was probably 10 or 11 when I was reading a book about her. And immediately I felt her energy come in, and it was like, I can help you, because she was a medium. She heard spirit. She connected with something greater than herself. She was one of the first to really like say, this is what I'm doing. And people accepted it until they didn't. And this is something else that I kind of want. I know I love her story. I kind of want to, express to the world. These are war times. And in war times, people like myself are persecuted because we tell people what is coming. We help them get through it. And then when people realized we saw it all and we were powerful, they try to take that power away from us. And that is exactly what is happening in social media right now. So if you saw my post about, it was a little like, I know the headline was a bit like, oh my God, frantic, but the witch hunt online, I truly believe is coming. And I have seen videos in the southern states that are incredibly frightening of a preacher saying there are witches in our church. We know who they are. We will overcome. And it's happening. And because of a lot of this right-wing uprising all over the world right now, I'm not saying we have to be afraid, but I will say that I am being very cautious about where I post and what I post about. So take that with a grain of salt and do whatever you feel comfortable doing. I don't think there's going to be a literal witch hunt in Canada, but I will say, yes, Pastor Greg, you are correct. I will say I am being very cautious because I have been through this before. As a witch that grew up like childhood to where I am now, I have been through a time where I couldn't speak my truth, where I couldn't say things, where I had to fake that I believed in Christianity. I had to fake that I didn't believe in something higher than myself, and I had to fake that I didn't see ghosts and I didn't see spirit. So I have been oppressed already through once in my lifetime. I know what that feels like, and I know what it feels like energetically, and I feel that coming. So that is why I have created this space for us to be able to share our truth and our voices without people jumping on top of us and judging what we're saying. So I want you to know that this is an incredibly safe space within my community. And I am on top of new people every single day. When they show up, I go through everything they have posted. I look at where, and probably in the last week, I have had to boot 10 or 15 people. There's a lot of spam coming into. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I have had to boot some people that probably didn't have the greatest intentions of joining the group. And hey, if they want to join the group and they are interested parties, then they can just email me. He already did burnings. Oh dear Lord. I haven't watched enough of it because I just don't want to be in that energy. I want to be in this confident energy. But yes, it is incredibly frightening to me. So one of the other goddesses we can call on is Isis. She is an Egyptian goddess. And I think, yes, the sun, I believe. Oh, that's raw. So if you feel connected to Egyptian deities, feel free to grab a pencil and draw an ankh or draw a sun as protection. Oh, I think she might actually be my favorite. Boudica or Boadicea or however you want to pronounce it. I will never make fun of you for pronouncing something wrong because I just think we all wrap our tongues around words differently sometimes. But Boudica. So she was a Celtic warrior who fought against the Romans. She was ultimately killed in battle, but her strength and what she did, this is why I love Celtic and Norse traditions so much. Women can be venerated as goddesses and as warriors. When we think about Freya, she is the goddess of love and the goddess of war. So we can be peaceful and loving and be rage filled, right? So we have to remember that all of these feelings are good. And I know I had said to somebody, Allison, I don't know if it was you, but I said, don't gaslight yourself. Don't immediately assume that we have to raise to a higher vibration and not feel our anger and not feel our sadness. Raising our vibration is great when we want to connect with spirit, when we want to connect with deities, but raising our vibration to avoid human emotions is not something that we want to be doing to ourselves, because that is truly the highest form of gaslighting, is when we gaslight ourselves and convince ourselves that we shouldn't feel stress, that we shouldn't feel anxiety, that we shouldn't feel anger just because we want to be at peace all the time. You will find it harder and harder to find that space on the planet we are living in because we are in these chaotic times, because we are in this warlike energy. It is easier to just allow it and release it and let it go and then come back to a space of, okay, because we are in that vibration of war. If you're trying to avoid it, it will make the stress worse. It will make the anxiety worse. So allow yourself to feel it and release it. Now, another amazing spirit to call forward is white buffalo woman of the indigenous people. She is all about peace. So again, as we're calling in these deities, as we're calling in these energies, we're honoring and respecting them, because if we want to do deity work, we can't just grab something and be like, well, this is mine and this is how I'm going to use it. We have to respect it. So sitting with these energies first and foremost and going, how does this feel? And it's okay if you're gravitated towards a deity that you know nothing about. That is a-okay. But sit with it for a while. See how it feels. And if it still doesn't feel like home, it's okay to go, yeah, I don't think that one was for me, and move on and find another deity. We do not have to pick one deity to focus on. Odin, to me, because I've lost my father, and of course he still shows up all the time, But he feels like very fathering energy to me, and I love his energy. So he sits on my altar all the time. But that doesn't mean that I don't call on these other energies. You're not cheating on your deities if you call to other deities or you call to other traditions. It's okay to have an expansive amount of deities that you work with. And for me, I like having specific deities for specific things. Now, one of the things that I like to use a lot is symbols, and one of those is runes. So understanding, and actually, if you're into Norse tradition, if you want to learn more, this is an amazing, amazing, amazing deck. It is the Viking Oracle by Stacy DeMarco. I don't have it in stock anymore. I sold out, and I won't be carrying any more decks just because it's gotten ridiculous. But I love this because it gives us something to say. It tells us some information. So now don't be frightened about this. And what's Lee saying here? There is so much of that high energy in spiritual communities right now. And it's, yes, I can. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because this leaving our bodies to raise our vibration and not sitting in the reality in which we are living is total gaslighting, is total toxic positivity, and we need to focus on our reality. We cannot escape our reality. We can't escape that there is a war in the Ukraine. We cannot escape that our democracy here and in the US keeps being attacked. We cannot ignore the fact that we are sitting in a pandemic that I believe will eventually kill a third of the population. Like, this stuff is right in front of us. And I believe it's toxic to think that we should leave that behind and float in the clouds and whisper to our crystals. It can help us. Like, I love this one. It gets rid of my anger. Honestly, it's like the best crystal I've ever had. But in no way, shape, or form do I think that this is going to solve world problems. It is a tool. It is a great tool. All of these things are great tools. But they are not going to solve these problems. They are not going to bring us, us sitting together in a circle and sending out this energy for the Ukraine, yes, can shift things. I truly do believe that. But if our focus is just on the tools, if our focus is just on high vibes and connecting to something that is not within ourselves, we're running away from what is right in front of us. Yes, we do have to keep hope. I truly, and that is, why I believe that connecting with deities can give us the strength that we may not have in our own lives right now. Because we need to call on this strength. We need to call in wisdom. And a lot of this stuff that I'm saying to you guys is, I'm receiving these hits every single day because I'm open to receiving. So yes, I'm connecting with something greater than myself. Yes, but I'm still in reality. I'm still here understanding that I have to, feed my kid. I have to pay my taxes. I really don't want. It is all about balance. We need to have all of these things. But I have been noticing the community that I was once so entrenched in is truly about avoiding reality, is truly about not wanting to see what is right in front of us. And I can no longer connect with that. And I probably sound pretty ranty and angry in the last couple of weeks, but that is just me giving all of this a voice for the first time in a long time. I know I've always said that I don't feel like I fit into the spiritual communities, and that I finally just had to make a space for myself because I didn't feel like I was in the right place. And in no way, shape, or form am I saying you have to change your practice to be more like mine. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we can no longer ignore what is going on in front of us because it's truly right in front of us now. So just a couple more things. Runes are an amazing way to protect. We can write them on our hands. We can call in a rune. We can ask to be shown. We can pull a rune on the daily. In my oh, I'm so glad, Allison, that I can be of help. I've always believed that a personal practice is truly a personal practice. And yes, we can have leaders and we can have spiritual guides and we can have people that can show us things, but truly it all comes back to yeah, Sarah, I totally get that. We have to pull back. And that is one of the tricks to all of this. Learn that you do not have to connect with every single thing that is out there. So right now, if you're feeling like you're completely overwhelmed, and I got this way last week, I just decided Friday, I think, Sandra, was it last Friday you came? We just went and sat by the fire. I walked through the woods. I connected with my birds. And this is another thing. You know, paying attention to what is going on here in Ontario right now is we are having an incredibly long winter. Who predicted that one? Nobody believed me. Even my husband didn't believe me. And every single time he's like, oh, I'm so ready for winter to be over. I'm like, do you believe me? Do you believe me? I think we actually have another after this one. I feel like it's going to go on and on and on. Yeah, runes are fun because you can use them in so many different ways. You can use them for sigils. You can use them for, I'm just replying to Allison. She was saying she just got a book with runes. Here's my suggestion when people are trying to learn runes. If you just try to memorize them, it may happen if you have if you're good at memorizing things. But like anything else, it's about creating a relationship. So what my suggestion would be, just like the way that we were pulling the cards for the deities, we can also just pull one every single day. And in the Covenant of the Moon, that was my suggestion to everybody. Pull a card and then pull a rune every day and see what the message is. And what you'll notice is you create a relationship with specific runes. So the ones that always show up for me are Elhaz, which is the stag or the elk, sorry. So it has horn. Oh, it's this little guy down the bottom here. Everywhere. Like I literally see it everywhere because I have stags all over my office. This is one of the runes I have a relationship. Fehu. I actually find branches all the time. Like this always makes me giggle. I'll find things like this in the woods. I mean, yes, we had cut this, but like, like how amazing. So when you request, oh, this was the Viking Oracle deck, Sarah. When you start asking the gods or deities to work with you, you can ask for symbols. And I always say, what do I need today? What do I need today? And then like Fehu shows up, or mana shows up if it's like I'm supposed to be in community and with human beings and with a greater self. I wouldn't, I always say to people, don't just try to memorize things, actually work with them. Yes, Stacy DeMarco, that's exactly it. So playing with it. And here's the other thing, when we actually create a relationship with these things, as in like using it on the daily, or connecting with the gods and lighting a candle and putting it on your altar. Because the other thing is too, you can take these cards and put it on your altar to ask. Like, you can actually select the rune instead of pulling a rune and say, this is what I need today. So I'd be like, Odin, this is what I need in my life today. Please protect me. And I put it on my altar. You can also draw them on your hand. You can put it, I sometimes with eyeliner, put it in my hairline because it's above my third. I mean, you could put it right on your third eye. But I tend to, you can put an X too on your, just in your hairline. That's actually a very Hindu thing to do. I have a, somebody that does my books, and she was teaching me all these tricks. She's like, you're into spirituality? And she gave me a Ganesh. No, I think it was a Ganesh little charm she gave me, which was awesome. But you can use these things every single day, and it can be incredibly simple. And we don't realize how empowering this is. You know, essential oils, scent is one of our strongest senses, but also it brings us to a place. So like my grounding oil, sometimes all I have to do is smell that and I'm back in my body. Taste even. Like, I love apples for protection because if you cut it a certain way, it's got a 5-pointed star in it, right? So if you feel like you need to be protected, actually ingesting that apple can be an incredible way to bring strength into your life. And it's also a connection to the other world. So through the Summerlands. So we have all of these ways that we can empower ourselves to feel stronger on the daily, every single day. And that we do not want to be giving our power away to the news. We do not want to be giving our power away to, you know, I think about this whole convoy thing and the freedom piece. And, you know, the one thing that I will say is the loudest people get the most attention. And through all of this, we all know that it's a very small piece of the population that is anti any of this, that it is pro, you know, getting rid of the democracy and trying to start a new, it's a very small fraction of the world. And when we connect with that energy, we're actually giving them power. So I will say the one thing that I will kind of see as a blessing with all the news being focused in Russia is we no longer are giving these people the power to communicate. It's not showing up in our feeds as much. It's not showing up in the news as much. And I actually do believe it was a bit of a mistake for the media to give it so much attention, to give them so much power that, you know, it's kind of like when Trump was booted off all the social media platforms, people's anxiety went way down because we were no longer having to listen to that human being's drivel. So also be aware of how much you're consuming. If you're, you know, sitting there and doom scrolling for a whole entire day, which I am totally guilty of doing, and like I said in my post, I am not perfect. I don't always do these things. I don't always stand by my altar. I forget. I'm human. Sometimes I close the door to my office and don't come down here for days because I just don't have the energy. We are human beings. So remember to treat yourself like a human being and be gentle on yourself. If you need a break from all of the media, go for a walk in the woods. Turn off the radio. Don't listen. But also, don't bury your head so far deep in the sand that you're not even aware of what is going on. So let's just go back over some of the things that I spoke about. Getting your information from good sources, checking lots of different sources. So don't just trust me. What is happening? look at the world, inform yourself, understand what is actually going on the planet right now. This is an attack on democracy. And if you can't see that this is an attack on democracy, you need to go and educate yourself about what is going on in the world, because this has happened now in 3 major countries, and I don't think this is the end of it. So inform yourself. Then do things in your home to make yourself feel safe. So whether that is putting up some sigils, lighting some candle, using some grounding oil, clearing your energy every day. So if you are consuming a lot of toxic media and you're seeing all of this negative stuff, allow it to flow through you. So release that energy. Allow the anger to come forward, but don't sit in it. Just let it go. Release it. Cry. Allow it to flow through your body, and then just have a shower to clear that energy. Use peppermint soap and say, I release these negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions from my body and my mind. Amazing thing to do. Call in some deities to help protect us and watch over us, to empower yourself. And don't be afraid to call them in every single day. I call in deities when I get in the car. Like, Ganesh, remove all the jerky drivers from my, area. I call in so much stuff. Using sigils to clear our minds, using sigils to protect our children. I'm really stressed out about the fact that they're getting rid of masks in schools. I know my child's school will probably still remain masking. They've been incredibly amazing, but I worry for children that are going to be bullied for wearing masks, and I worry about what is coming. But I also have to stay present and know that if I protect myself and I protect my family, everything will be okay. I can only change what I can do. I can't change what other people are doing. So we need to stay focused on what we need for ourselves and not give energy to the people that have different opinions than us. So then putting protective symbols in our cars, in our shoes, in our tea, all of these things. And also standing up for your truth. This is the thing. I don't always fight. But if I see somebody being pushed around, or if I see somebody being yelled at, I step in. I am a fighter in that way. I will stand up for anybody. What I see happening right now with trans kids in Texas, I think I'm probably more angry about that than I am about anything else, because I feel like we're stepping backwards. I feel like we're going back in time. We're no longer moving forwards, and we have stalled as a society. Yeah, I totally agree, Allison. I do worry about the bullying. I worry about what we are creating in this world right now with all of these really antiquated ideals that are being brought to the forefront. Like, I can't even fathom. Like I said yesterday, my best friend is a trans dad. Like, I can't imagine a world where he's not able to live exactly the way he wants to live. And even for myself, I use pronouns they, them. And people question it all the time. And I'm like, it's none of your fucking business why I choose to use those. And I can do that because I am strong and confident. And those are my pronouns. If you ignore it, then you're ignoring me. And I can say that confidently, but not everybody can do that. So we do have to stand up. We do have to point it out when things are being pushed backwards instead of moving forwards. One of the other things, and I talked about this at the beginning, about stockpiling and making sure we are safe. I don't think there is going to be war in Canada anytime soon. But I am a huge believer in being prepared for the worst case scenario, because if we have rolling blackouts, like we did, I think it was 2010. Okay, who's calling me? I don't know who's calling. Was it not 2010? 2007, 2008? I can't remember the last blackout we had. But in that moment, I decided I never wanted to feel like that again. And as we are seeing in the Ukraine, that there were lots of people that were completely unprepared, even though Putin's on their border saying, yeah, we're kind of thinking this is going to go down. And everybody was saying this is going to go down. There were lots of people that did not prepare themselves for that eventual outcome. And it can be as simple as having just a tiny little stockpile of water, of food for 72 hours to sustain yourself while the power is out. So think about, if the power was out in your house right now, what would be affected? So for us, because we live in the country, our power used to go out all the time. It has gotten much better. But we always have a big canister of water in like a gas, like the yellow tanks, the gasoline tanks, to fill our toilet tanks. We also always have bottled water. We actually have a generator that we can hook up to our water pump. So we always have access to water, but we don't like to just use it just to turn the water on for like a bath or whatever. So we have bottled water. I also have a stockpile of canned goods, dry goods. I will say I'm a little bit of a prepper, and I wouldn't say I'm paranoid, but again, I come from a place where there was war once, and I was told all those stories. So I have that in the back of my mind. If I had to ration flour, sugar, milk, any of these things, do I have milk frozen in my freezer? Yes, I do. Do I have a stockpile of things that will get me through for a couple of weeks? Yes, I do. I would just suggest doing these things in case we do have rolling blackouts. And the threat of that has been coming for years. This is not, we are generally ready for it for sure. These rolling blackouts weren't necessarily about the war. The rolling blackouts were about cyber attacks, and we are seeing more and more cyber attacks. I've seen every single politician say, if you haven't updated your phone, please do it, because they're updating the security so people can't actually, hack your phone and find out personal information. Russia has one of the largest bot farms and hacker farms on the planet. They are constantly trying to attack our, like last year in the States, they closed down the pipeline that delivered crude oil on the East Coast. For days, people couldn't get gas. So I will say to you, think about these things. So if this happens, you're not frightened, you're prepared. Because I do, as a seer, see these things in the future. And Spirit gives us this information not necessarily on the timeline that we're on now. So 5 years ago, when I was seeing this stuff, I at the time was like, oh, is this going to happen now? But you can never know, because Spirit doesn't deal with time. Just so you know, it doesn't exist in their realm. They're just giving us information, and we essentially have to figure out what the timeline is. And it's hard. And that's the piece of being a seer that drives me absolutely crazy, is I don't know when this stuff is going to happen. The other piece is, this is a potential outcome that I'm seeing. So these things like the power grid going down and rolling blackouts with the internet, all of that is stuff that can potentially happen. And it could happen within the next couple of weeks. It could happen 6 months from now. It could happen 6 years from now. But I will tell you that having things in place to prevent that, or not prevent it, but to be able to work with it, is what gives me the confidence that I will be okay. So doing these things, like prepping, like having a bug out bag. And if you don't know what that is, it is a backpack with a change of clothes, first aid kit, all of these things that if you're living in town and you need to get out of town, copies of your passport, copies of your ID, all of these things in a bag or in something, especially if you're in the city, you may want to consider happening. And it's not about being paranoid. This is about being prepared so that we're not in a situation like in the Ukraine where people are like, oh my God, I have a can of tuna in my fridge in my cupboard, and I'm going to take that down to the underground to stay safe. So think about if you had to go into the subway, if you're living in Toronto, if something like that happened, what would you want to take with you? What would make you feel safe and prepared? And I'm a huge believer that the more prepared you are for these things, the more safe you feel. It's kind of like having insurance on your house or insurance on your car. You're not going to go out and drive your car on the 401 without insurance because that just doesn't make sense. And when do we even use insurance, right? So I've used insurance a lot because I've had a lot of things happen to my vehicles. So that makes me feel safe. Having a stockpile and having a bug out. I mean, we don't need one here because I don't have to leave anywhere. We're, kind of in the perfect situation. But having these things makes me feel confident, makes me feel safe. So I would just suggest to you is to sit down with your partner or yourself or your community and say, what would I need to survive a week? What would I need to survive 2 days? What would I need to feel secure if the power goes out? Do you have flashlights? Do you have candles? Do you any of those things? And yes, I totally agree with Allison. I seriously do think it's my country upbringing and also my ancestors that have gone through the war that has told me these stories. So don't be caught out and know that the more prepared you are, the less stress you will have in your life. Whether it's prepared with deities, with oils, with candles, with food, with a place to go, like what is your plan? People always say to me, oh, we're coming to your house, Emma. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, this is my plan. I didn't make this plan for everybody else. Yes, my mom gets to come. I don't really replace my stock very often. So we have a ton of dried goods. We have a ton of seeds. So I can have a garden. We have canned goods. I rotate the canned goods. So we are kind of like using our stockpile. And I just make sure that there's always the same amount in there. We have a pantry, a quite large pantry that is packed. So we could probably, like right now, if everything went down and we didn't have access to anything, I'd probably be good for a month. Yeah, road closures, right? I was actually saying to Sandra yesterday, our cold cellar is, so yeah, the expiry dates, I will say if it's canned goods or, jars, I honestly wouldn't worry about it. Expiry dates, it always kills me. Me and my husband fight about this a lot. I will eat something from like 6 years ago and in a can. Well, maybe not 6 years ago. But I grew up on stories of people finding canned goods from the war like 6 years later. And they're like, oh, peaches in a can. We just destroyed it. We ate all of them. And you have to remember that this stuff will last a lot longer. Especially best before dates aren't exactly expiry dates, all of those things. But yes, I do rotate my stock. But being prepared, it just makes sense. We also have our cold cellar is 2 feet thick concrete all the way around. Like ceiling and everything. And I just said to my friend the other day, I'm like, I'm going to be doing a spring clean out of that. and I'm going to make it. And we literally have bunk beds in there. We didn't build them as bunk beds, but they're like big giant shelves that these tubs can fit on. And you can literally take the tubs off of them. And then we have like bedding for everybody. You can fit a mattress up there and everything. So I am not embarrassed by that at all. I just think, like for a tornado, fantastic. For like bad weather, fantastic. But also, if we want to stay safe in our house and that military coming up the driveway was actually the military coming up my driveway, we're good. So I'm an over-preparer just because of the way I was raised, but having just enough for 72 hours to a week is a really good idea, especially in these times we're living. If gas gets extremely expensive, people aren't going to be going to the grocery store as often. So we're going to have to learn how to stockpile and ration just because of the way that we're going to be living. I know, right? I didn't tell my husband that that's what I was doing when I made him build them, but yeah, my brain immediately goes to the apocalypse. Just because of what I do and what I've seen in many lifetimes. And we have all been through this before. I still struggle with the idea that I chose this lifetime, but I do also think I was built for this lifetime. So yesterday when people were getting all up in arms and I'm like, I gotta do this video, it was like my shoulders went back, my tits went out. I was like, I can do this. I can give people confidence to not be afraid anymore, to feel more secure in their body, to feel more secure in their homes and get rid of that stress and that anxiety. I know I was built for these times. I don't know if I would choose it, but I would definitely know that I can handle these times. I even bought a bow and arrow to relearn. I used to do archery when I was a kid, but I haven't done it. I bought a bow and arrow because I thought, hey, if I have to hunt one day, I probably should have that skill in my back pocket. So just all of these things make me feel like I can keep my family safe if anything happens, that I can support myself if anything happens. And I love being able to share that with the community that you all have helped me create. And I'm just so blessed that we are able to sit in this community together and have these conversations because I think it's so important right now. So don't forget to light your candle for the Ukraine. You can even put, like, on the other side, you could put a flag of the Ukraine too. Oh, I love these candles. But please don't sit in that fear energy. That fear energy is everywhere right now. We need to ground ourselves. We need to take our power back. We need to become prepared. So if anything does happen, that we're not scrambling or worried or stressed. And trust me, the more prepared you are for any likelihood, the less stress there is. I do want to say that I am feeling all of this just like you are. I'm stressed just like you are. I'm overwhelmed just like you are. There is nobody on this planet that is unaffected by this energy right now. So know that you are not alone. Know that everybody is feeling overwhelmed. Know that everybody is stressing about money. Know that everybody is stressing about the supply chain. Know everybody. So we can come together in this community and share that. Don't be afraid to go into the leaky cauldron and just pour your guts out and say, this is how I'm feeling. Because we need a place to vent sometimes. Sometimes the people around us, like my husband thinks I'm a bit crazy. Like if he knew that we did those shelvings for beds, he would like, you're crazy, woman. He just does not see what I see. Even though he does see what I see, he doesn't take it the same way I do. So know that the leaky cauldron and woo culture is there for you guys. I have created this to be a free space. So we have a place that we can come and communicate our worries, communicate our ideas, and come together to create some unity, some unified ideals. And please share your opinions in there, because my opinion is not the only opinion, and I have lots of opinions. I've already talked for almost 2 hours because this is what I do. I need to communicate with the world. I'm a manifester. It's what I need to do. And it's why I was put here on this earth at this time. I was watching a video. Actually, I was on YouTube just scrolling through stuff and saw this video from Dolores Cannon. And I never have followed her work, but I found it really interesting. She was popping up a lot. So I popped on this one video, and I was feeling the stress of what's my next move? Like, what should I be doing? And she was talking about my generation of healers and seers and magic makers, that we were brought here not to do anything. We were here to be. We just have to be ourselves, speak our truth, and share that with the world, and then everything will be all right. So instead of doing, I'll be more sharing things, because I honestly feel like a lot of voices are getting crushed in all of this. A lot of voices are being pushed aside. And I think we need to be speaking more about connecting to our bodies, to the earth on which we live, and paying attention to the grand cycles. So we are in a cycle of war right now. So please know that this is not something that we could ever have avoided, that this was always coming, and that it's how you deal with it in the moment that will... I know I haven't read her books, Allison. I probably should. I don't actually consume a lot of spiritual stuff, shocking, because I'm a huge believer that the only truth is the channel, right? That her books are her truth, and yes, there are pieces of them, but I never consume lots of one person's truth, because I think we have to be cautious of just regurgitating. So I'm going to have to check out some of her stuff, I think, but I try not to consume too much. So allow yourself to just sit with this energy, feel it, process it, let it go, and then empower yourself through these tools, and know that you are possibly gaslighting yourself, that you are possibly avoiding feeling this stuff because we have been told that it's negative and we shouldn't. But I think sometimes too, sitting in the energy of war is incredibly empowering. Actually accepting the fact that we are sitting in the... That was really weird. My nipples just... When I said, when we accept that we are sitting in war, I just had this energy rush through my nipples. That was really weird. Tits out, ladies. But I seriously believe that when we accept that we can see where we are and then look at what we have to do and who we can call in, you're in a much more empowered state, and you're no longer thinking we're weak, that we'll be taken over, that, things are coming undone. Accept it, release it, and move into your power. That is the only way that we will get through this. And using the tools that resonate with you may be incredibly helpful. Using symbols, using oils, using cards. They are not the only way. They are not the truth, but they are a tool that can help you move through this. So before I completely hit the 2-hour mark and people are falling asleep from listening to me, thank you again for showing up in this space and supporting me. Sometimes I feel like a crazy ranty woman, and there have been a lot of people in my community say that I'm fear-mongering, that I'm, bringing negativity into it, and it's so far from the truth. I want to prepare people for what is coming. I want to help people be strong enough to actually sustain what we are going to go through in the next couple of years. Because whether we like it or not, this war is going to affect absolutely everybody on this planet, and we can no longer deny that. We have to see the truth. So as I say that, I just want to pull a couple cards. Where are my cards? Oh my gosh, I don't even have any tarot with me. Hang on. Okay. I'm going to, oh, I love you guys too. Thank you for that. I just want to, the star won't come out. What's that mean? So let's just pull a card to give us some clarity about where we should be heading from here. We need to be charging in. And pentacles are all about being in our bodies, right? About our physical wealth or health. We need to charge into this with a new way of thinking, a new way of being. Oh. And stop with the judgments. I really feel like we need to be judging each other less. I feel like we need to be, opening our arms to people that maybe not have the right information, and just understanding that we all process these things at different times in different ways, and that it's not about us against them. I really want everybody to step back from that idea. Like I said earlier, I have friends that are vaccinated, not vaccinated, in the middle vaccinated. I don't care. Like, honestly, it worries me that we think the pandemic is over, but we cannot be fighting against each other and make our way through this. So we have to stop the judgment. Hold on to your hats, people. This is what I pulled for March. I pulled the 4 of Coins in the Tower. So again, another one of the preparations is learn how to reuse what you have, learn how to recycle what you have, and learn how to buy quality items that will last you a long time. So no more fast fashion, no more, buying cheap because it's cheap. Like, I would highly recommend starting to invest in things that will last a lifetime instead of things that are for right now. Because money, the way we even see it, the way we even work with it, the way we even interact with it, I will tell you, I've been thinking about offering a barter system for my services. So if you want a reading, if you bring me a chicken and a bag of rice, or what I haven't figured out, that's the only thing about bartering. I don't know trying to figure out, like, what is worth a reading? I have no idea. I want to start changing how I receive money and how I receive things, and the way I offer things. Like, Spirit told me that I need to offer, is it 4 readings a month at $50, because I know people cannot necessarily afford my going rate. And just so you know, I've lowered all my rates. So my prices are half of what they used to be, because I know the economy is going here. And yes, I know my worth. Yes, I know the value of $1. Yes, I understand that I have in the past charged up to $700 for my sessions, but that is no longer going to be possible in this society. People are feeling that, everybody is being pinched. Our food is getting more expensive. Our gas is getting more expensive. Products, it's why I'm getting rid of products in my shop. I actually can't afford to keep stocking the shelves anymore, because things are getting so expensive at the cost level, and the margins on these products are so tiny that I just can't anymore. And it wasn't that I was floating the business, but it was like I would have to purchase things and then sell them, and people are not buying anymore. I know, barter is so very cool. Yeah. And I would love, Melissa, for us to maybe even create a barter system within um, within the community where we can barter for things, like somebody say, oh, I have this service, and then somebody be like, I have a chicken and some eggs, and or I have a deck, or I have a book, or I have a, and figure that out, because I truly do believe that is where we're headed as a society. I think things are going to shift and change. I think the economy is totally going to change, and we have to once again be prepared for this. Start thinking. Like when I left social media, that was because Spirit told me you have to figure out a way for people to see you not on the internet. And how can I do that when I'm constantly battling with the algorithm? How can I do that when I'm constantly creating memes? Like I was spending half a day, people. I was spending half a day on social media just producing content. So when am I supposed to pack up shipments? When am I supposed to feed my child? When am I supposed to run a community when all I was doing was focusing online? I have in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I have completely changed the way I'm thinking about my business, and I'm loving it because I truly feel like, yeah, I have always bartered. Like when I did photography, I always bartered for products. I always bartered for other things. I always bartered for readings. Like I've traded readings with so many people, I can't even like list the number. But I think it's incredibly important that we start thinking about society in a different way, about creating our own communities. I know I've already talked about doing a free store here in the summer, and I still want to do that. So let's start talking about this as a community. Let's start trying to create these systems so we can thrive through this time instead of feeling like we're struggling. Okay, I have officially hit the 2-hour mark. I'm going to say bye for now, but I do want to be doing these videos more often now that I'm off of social media. I'm just finishing up my taxes, and then things will probably start coming out more, like the offering of the sigils course and little courses like that. I've also been struggling with my mental health and the ADHD issue, so I want to honor myself and my brain and what I'm going through, and not come back full force the way like I was doing it before, because it was incredibly draining, and I think I truly burnt myself out in ways that I have yet still recognized. So thank you again for showing up and supporting me. There are going to be more ways to support the community coming in the future. I'm going to put up a virtual tip jar, because it does cost me money to keep this going, and I want to keep it going for free. Like some portions of this community are 100% free. So I'm going to give it you can offer what you want. It cost me about almost $200 a month to have this community going. So I have, with me not making any money right now, because I've just pretty much shut everything down, I want to keep this going. So if we can barter, if you can offer a tip jar or any of those things, I'm going to be doing that in the coming weeks. So if you have anything to offer into that, I would greatly appreciate it, so we can keep this community going, because I feel like, to me personally, this feels like a new beginning. This feels like what the new world is going to look like. Okay. Bye for now, Woo Mates. Thank you so much for supporting again, even if it's just with your energy. Bye for now.